Hey, what's up guys, Vanos here, and today I'm going to show you guys some tips with the Model 1887. So the first thing I'm going to get into is the class setup, and I'm not really going to go into detail, and the reason why is because I already explained it in previous videos. And if you guys haven't seen my regular shotgun class setup video, make sure to go check it out. I'm going to leave the link on the screen. But basically the only difference between that class and the model class is that I'm using Stalker as the first perk that I unlock in my specialist package, and I did explain why I use Stalker in another video, but I'm still going to explain it just in case you guys missed that one. But basically the reason I like using Stalker is because the Model 1887 benefits a ton when you aim down sights when you don't have steady aim. And the reason for this is because the pellet spread of the Model 1887 is quite large, especially compared to the rest of the shotguns, which means it's pretty inaccurate when you're shooting from the hip without steady aim. So aiming down sights is actually going to narrow your hip spread, and that way your gun is a lot more accurate at medium to long range. And out of all the rest of the shotguns, the Model 1887 benefits the most from aiming down sights. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are wondering, why wouldn't you just unlock steady aim and shoot from the hip? And the reason for this is because I find it a lot easier to get to the middle of your target when you're aiming down sights. And I found with the Model 1887, even if your hip spread isn't as tight as when you're shooting from the hip, you're still going to get that one-shot kill, even at long distances. And I just found that aiming down sights is a lot more consistent than shooting from the hip, because when you are shooting from the hip, it's a lot harder to be completely accurate, and a lot of times you might not shoot exactly in the center of the enemy, and that will get you a hit marker, unfortunately. And that's something you don't want with the Model 1887, because it has such a slow rate of fire, which is going to screw you over because they might be able to take you out before you get off that next shot. And another reason why it's a lot easier to be on target when you're aiming down sights is because the iron sights of the Model 1887 are pretty good, and also this gun is a long range type of shotgun, which means you're going to be shooting enemies that are a little further away, and this means that they're going to be smaller targets. And like I said before, it's a lot easier to be accurate and hit those smaller targets when you're aiming down sights. And by the way guys, as a side note, the reason why aiming down sights is easier to get to the center of your target and aim accurately is because your sensitivity gets lower. And I did explain the subject in greater detail in another video. You could go check that out. I'm going to leave the link on the screen. But anyways, the last reason why I like using Stalker as the first perk to unlock in my specialist package is the most obvious one, and that's because you move a lot faster when you aim down sights. And this helps you a lot because, like I said, you're going to be aiming down sights a lot with the model, so you might as well move fast when you're doing it. And at the same time, you're able to creep around corners while you're aiming down sights, and this actually makes it a lot easier, and you're a lot more accurate when you're taking out enemies on the other side of a corner. So that could definitely help you out in a lot of situations. But there are times when you still want to shoot from the hip with the model, and this is whenever the enemies are so close to you, because your target is going to be so big that you don't have to be very accurate and you don't have to aim down sights. Alright guys, so now I'm going to get into some of the maneuvers and some of the decisions that I make when I'm using the model. So the way we're going to decide how we're going to play with the model is seeing what are the advantages and the disadvantages of this shotgun. So the advantage of this shotgun is that it's very high damage as long as you're accurate, and you could also get pretty good range with it, but the disadvantage is the fact that it has such a slow rate of fire, so that means you're going to be very exposed in between each shot. So the way I deal with this is I make sure that my gunfights are 1v1 situations, so I take one enemy out at a time, and if there are multiple enemies, you want to make sure that you're close to a wall or close to any type of cover, so that way you can do those peeking moves in between your shots. And the only time I find it's okay to encounter multiple enemies when you don't have that type of cover is whenever the enemies aren't facing you, because obviously they're not going to be able to turn around in time before you get those shots off, and you're going to be able to take them out pretty easily. Now, another way I deal with this slow rate of fire is by drop shotting in between my shots. And I don't use this tactic all the time, and I do not suggest you guys do this. The only situation where this is necessary is when you're in a 1v1 situation and you feel that your shot is not going to be very accurate and you feel like you're going to get a hit marker. Because for that split second before you actually take that shot, you can kind of tell if you're aiming accurately enough to get that one-shot kill. And that way you could use your judgment if you want to drop shot or not. And another time where you want to drop shot is whenever you encounter two enemies by surprise. So after you take out the first one, you want to make it so that it's harder for the second guy to take you out. So by going prone, it's going to kind of confuse the enemy, and it's going to be harder for him to stay on target. And that way you actually have a chance to take out two guys in a 2v1 situation. Now, another maneuver I have for you guys is running in a 90-degree angle after you take your shot. So what this means is by turning directly to your right or directly to your left to cover, or even if you don't have cover, even just running to the side, it makes it harder for him to shoot you if you do end up getting that hit marker. And a lot of times this is actually faster than just strafing to the side, so I find this helps me out a lot when I'm using the model just because of that slow rate of fire, and I want to get to cover as soon as possible. And sometimes I'm not so close to the wall that I could do that peeking move, so I kind of want to run instead of just strafing to the side. but it could also help you out even if you're not even close to any type of cover, because it does confuse the enemy a little bit and it's harder for him to stay on target. So it's just another little juking move to buy you some time in between your shots. But the only disadvantage here is that you're going to have to turn back to shoot the enemy, but a lot of times, like I said, you're going to have cover, so it's going to be easier to just, stay back and then take your time to come back out and take that second shot. And another reason why I like sprinting in a totally different direction after I take one shot is because I'm thinking ahead, because if I know where the enemies are and I think I know there's an enemy close by, I could turn into his direction and be ready for the next gunfight. And that way you're making use out of that time in between your shots, and it's going to speed up your gameplay, and it's going to make it so that you could take out enemy after enemy without any type of hesitation. But anyways, guys, that's about it for the tips for the Model 1887. And just as a side note, you can use steady aim instead of stalker if you're more comfortable with shooting from the hip. I just find it's easier to aim down sight, so it's kind of personal preference, but I'm just telling you guys this is what I like to do. And also, you could use these strategies for a lot of the other pump action shotguns, because as you can see, they're all directed for any of the shotguns that have a slower rate of fire. So things like the Spaz or the KSG could definitely benefit from these tips. But anyways, hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I would really appreciate if you guys could leave it a thumbs up. And if you guys have some more time, make sure to go check out the other videos right here. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and follow me on Twitter and Facebook. The links will be below as always. And stay classy, guys, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.